What is your understanding of Te Tiriti o Waitangi? How confident are you in relation to using te reo tikanga in your work? How can you promote culturally sustaining practice in your work context? Those are the questions.
So,
I started with the Te Tiriti articles in practice.
Yeah, so did I.
I went to that. I started with the other one, which the culturally empowering practice, and it was so empowering and so exciting. I actually pivoted from Journey to Rangatiratanga and moved to the articles of Te Tiriti. It
Oh,
was um, it was eye-opening.
Yeah,
oh,
I agree.
So, sorry, you're saying culturally empowering practice is eye-opening?
Yes. Oh,
That,
so I started with the culturally empowering practice and the education equalities that you counter in your mahi that reflect our history. And I was just empowered to move to just learning more about the timeline and why things happened the way they have and the effect that it's had now. It was especially that analogy about the hotel. Did you see that one?
no.
The hotel one. It was really fascinating. It's like there's a hotel and the person who owns a hotel hates disabled people, absolutely hates them, makes it as difficult for them to access anything as possible. And all the people who work in the hotel hate disabled people. Well, anyway, he decides to sell, and the person who now buys the hotel actually really likes disabled people, has no problem with them, employs staff that have absolutely no problem with disabled people, yet the environment is still set up for it to be
Not.
not inclusive towards those disabled people, and that's very much like what's happened with Te Tiriti and with the treaty. How even though
Organisation. Mm.
absolutely it was quite a really good eye opener, that one.
mm, it was.
Oh, did you do that one too, Rochelle?
Yeah, I did this and them in the same order as you. I did the Te Tiriti first, and then I realised that that was the second one
Oh, and
in
Reiki.
Nathan Ricky
Ricky's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
things, and I thought, oh, I want to go back and do the first one because I was so inspired by the way he presented the Te Tiriti one, that I wanted to go back and do the first one. And I'm really, really glad that I did, um, because it
So,
all
sorry, if you're
ties in
doing
so
them, you
well.
should do them in the order of culturally empowering practice and then te tiriti.
I think that's the way they were designed to be done, or that's the way he produced
Hmm.
them, the order that he
I think
produced.
I went and had a wee read. I did think the same way as you, Rochelle. I had a look, thinking, oh, I've missed something. I've missed one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I ended up doing the journey to Tino Rangatiratanga.
Hmm.
I don't know why, but it was really interesting, obviously, once I got into it. So all of them were great. So after the
That's another one that I want to go back and do some of the other modules because I want to go back and look at kahikatea because that's an older sort of thing, but it sort of
Mm.
relates so much to everything that's come after it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I found we did the Tuahiwi course
Mm.
Hmm.
last year. That the one about hemp
Yes.
seed and the Ngaitahu claim last year.
Oh, okay.
That one.
Mm. No, I have not done it. I have not done it.
It was it was great because we sort of learned about all the land claims of the South Island and how there were only six Māori that signed all of them. And when they got to Otago, they didn't even bother getting off the boat to come onto the
I've
land.
heard that story.
It was,
Yeah.
so it was just looking about how, well, what the colonists did,
Mm.
education. And, some of the standouts for me were was it only 2 or 3 thousand secondary school students in the 1930s were Māori? They didn't even get secondary education. Um,
Oh, there's so
not
much reading. Yeah.
It was just that sort of blew me away. And what was really neat was how this generation is bringing back the language and they're bringing
Mm.
back the tikanga and it's regenerating everywhere now. And people are just seeing it as part of what we do rather than an add-on, which
Oh,
I
I
think,
agree. I agree, but I this is the thing with this current government that I'm concerned that we were making great progress,
Mhm.
but there's a blocker now, and I just think, oh, how come they're not as knowledgeable? Like they don't appear knowledgeable in what has happened, and they haven't heard someone speak their story, where you almost want to cry because you think, because you obviously don't know. If you're ignorant, then you're pretty sweet in your little bubble. But if once you learn, you sort of feel really gutted that this is even happening, and you need to work a way forward from here, to be honest.
Because I don't think there's the cultural representation in our government at the moment as
Mm.
much as there has been. So that's not as value, it's not seen as valued as much right now.
I
And
think last year I had the privilege of going to the Hui Tau in Taranaki, and listening to their story was similar to yours, but they also had a point of difference because they were their current goal, like they have quite a they have iwi goals where they are because they're passive resistors, and their goal was to educate each like the future generations so that they can then do the mahi and make the change. So they're not appearing aggressive they or anything. They just see the future in their rangatiratanga, like their young people, rangatahi.
mm,
Yeah, we just recently some people from our cluster we went to what was it called again? It was at the library. Hold on.
Mhm.
It was uh, just when you've got it on your page and it just disappears. Here we go. It was the sorry people. It's just it was Ko Kai Tahu Me Te Tiriti, which was the treaty, and it was about the historical events that shaped Te Waipounamu and with Ngāi Tahu archive Helen Brown, and she shared all this insight into the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi as well. So if you're ever interested, I've got quite a bit of information on that too, with the land purchases.
mm.
So, two people in our government, Winston Peters and David
David
Seymour, are
Stephen.
both of Māori descent. And yet they are not even acknowledging that there's two treaties, and one of them wasn't even I was on the boat that they were writing it, and it wasn't even translated correctly. I
Mm.
just don't understand. You should know your mahi when you're in that position.
I would agree, but you sort of have to question their values, their personal
Yeah,
values.
yeah, that's true.
Another good resource is Niho Taniwha. Have has anyone read
No.
that? It's a
Yeah.
book. It's really
Got it by
good.
the bed.
What's that? You've got it by your
By the
bed.
bed at the moment, the work one.
Yeah, so I need to remember these names. But that's similar to what you were saying, Rochelle, just with the history, and it's really informative. It's a really good read. It's not well, if you it's not that heavy. It's great to just get another perspective.
Mm.
Recommend
And I think as RTLB, I think we're probably leading the way in some ways of just practicing the correct tikanga when we have our hui and going through and saying karakia to start, using whakatauki,
it.
um, you know, saying a karakia before kai,
Mm.
trying to put as much tikanga in place in what we do and doing the mahi before the mahi. So
Mm.
making sure we're prepared for for
Especially
anything.
the treats, the mahi before the treats.
Yeah, I know,
So
but
is
it's
this going back to ethical practice and does it relate back to all of that?
I think it's tikanga, but yeah, it would be part of ethical practice and how we follow te tiriti.
Mm. But just knowing more about Te Ao Māori
Mm.
and knowing more about where we live as well and the
Yeah.
stories from the local area and the importance of those to the whānau that we're working with.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've been doing as a cluster is we will go on a hikoi and learn about part of our local environment. And
Mm.
it's it's just been amazing. We've got somebody that will lead that on our team and is very knowledgeable. So that's something we look forward to. And we have wānanga twice a term where we are sort of upskilling and things all the time too, because you don't know what you don't know.
Did anyone else do the Te Ahu Te Reo Māori courses that were on offer? Because they did hikois as well, which I found fantastic, where you got
Yes.
to know local areas, among
Well,
other things.
yeah, among other things, and the plants and the
Mm.
everything else. That was, it's a
We did a
shame
lot of
that,
that at school as part of our cultural narrative.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, a really good way for schools and that to do it. My concern is with a lot of this, the PD that we do, things like Ross Green and whoever else comes in and it's flavour of the month.
Bruce Perry.
Yeah, that it doesn't always translate to a New Zealand context.
Mm.
And I think
That's really interesting because Ross Green is he spends a lot of time in New Zealand and he's actually working with a group of people, including our cluster manager, who's right into CPS and what he does.
Mm.
So making a team to bring CPS with an Aotearoa lens.
Mm.
So there's
why are we
work.
already using it if it's not got that lens?
Yeah, well, that's why, because he's so popular here now and we want to be taking that direction. But now because it has to have his permission to be able to make any changes to it. So he's coming on board to do that for
I
New
found
Zealand, which is
it
good.
was quite similar. CPS was, it actually would be quite an easy transition in some ways because Hipi Korua is follows a similar framework with gathering everyone's voice, especially the students. I thought that was really powerful. He just drills a bit deeper, that whole
I had quite a
strong
good,
voice. Mm.
with Ro, and she just doesn't see it as working as part of her practice.
Yet.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
when,
the power of yet.
yeah, maybe when it has that Aotearoa lens on it, it might be a wee bit different.
Yeah, I just think we bring in some of these things sometimes, and it's what is it, the emperor's cloak. We see people can't see beyond what someo's saying, and
Surface. Yeah.
until they've got that New Zealand lens on them and that
Mhm.
cultural lens that we're trying to project and install in these things, then really we shouldn't be using them. I just think that they don't always fit with who we are.
Maybe, but I do think his model, if we're talking about Ross Green, his model is similar to, like I said, Hippie Korua. So I think it'll be interesting, but we do use other frameworks in New Zealand. Like if we do look at um some of the ones we looked at, even Junu to Tino Rangatira, that's like a mouthful. That's a framework, and if you read that one, there was so much before that to get to that point where Māori have tried to create helpful, I don't want to use the word framework again, but to get assessments from Akonga. So he is coming in with a different lens, but I think it could almost there be aspects that we would probably adopt,
Mm. And it's
but it
all about
doesn't remove the ones we already have.
asking the kid or asking whānau.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah, I
the
agree.
child at yeah.
Yes. Um, Moving on from those ones though, I was thinking the intergenerational trauma. I think, uh, like even if you go to we've said some of the people we've heard speaking. And I think we all understand now how that impacts our current generation. And there was that story that within the module where that man was sharing his history, and every generation of his family had an awful experience since colonialization. And I was just mortified to hear that he had that as part of his history. And of course, it would impact him as a person now, because this is his family. And I thought, not everyone has that. But
Mm.
it's how we move from here. That's what's important.
And it's not just him, it's the next two generations to come that
Yeah,
will be affected by that unless we put that circuit breaker in and do something about it.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. It was really
Absolutely.
interesting listening to Jace Williams talk,
Yeah.
and he talks about that whole intergenerational trauma and addressing the fact that when a mother is pregnant, they're holding the next two generations within them.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Mm.
so anything that happens to the mother while she's pregnant or anything she's
Yeah,
experiencing will be passed on to the next two generations to
that's
sort of,
right.
yeah.
Oh, the
If you want to do
membership.
a bit more on that, we've got Karina Schroers coming for our
Oh, she's
cluster.
awesome. We've had
Yeah,
her.
so
Yeah,
she's coming, so that's going to be, it's all about that. So if you're interested, in
yeah,
Lincoln Event
Yeah, we've had
Centre.
her twice, three
Nice.
times.
Yeah, we've had her a few
Wow.
times.
Oh, we've had her three times because we had her
Yeah.
once as the trauma group and then two more in the cluster, but she's living in Australia now.
Yeah, she is. She's coming over to work with some of our kayako and principals
Mm.
and big workshops.
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
Okay, we'll stop that there and then we can move on to the next one. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.